There was a silence in Marla Jensen's home that no clock could fill. After her husband left, the quiet was not peaceful. It was heavy, like fog that clung to her skin. Every creak in the floor reminded her of what used to be. Laughter over. Burnt pancakes, the soft hum of late-night radio. A man who once promised forever but packed his bags after 15 years and a single fight too many. She never chased him. She just stood in the doorway and watched him leave, suitcase in hand, and something colder than winter filling the room behind him. Months passed. The mailbox stayed empty except for bills. The neighbors waved, but she stopped waving back. Her days were routine. Dishes, dust, sleep, repeat. But her nights, they stretched endlessly. She could hear herself breathing in bed, and even that sounded like a stranger. Then came the letter. It was not addressed to her personally, just a notice from the county's family services office, asking if anyone in the area would be willing to offer temporary shelter to displaced children. 5 boys, unrelated, all pulled from different storms. No one wanted to take them in, not even for a few weeks. She almost tossed the paper in the trash. But something held her hand. 3 days later, 5 pairs of eyes stood on her porch. None of them trusting, none of them matching. The oldest was 17, tall, quiet, arms folded tight. The youngest was barely 8, clinging to a threadbare backpack. In between them stood 3 boys who did not speak much, but seemed to be watching her, measuring her. Their names were Malcolm, Tyrell. Devin, Josiah, and Silas Mahler offered them orange juice. No one said thank you. The first night she barely slept. Not because they were loud. They were not. It was the silence again. But this time it belonged to them. The kind of silence you carry when too many adults have promised things and walked away. Malcolm asked her point blank at breakfast. You get paid to do this? She said yes, honestly. But then she added, but I didn't say yes because of the check. I said yes because no one else did. He said nothing after that, just looked at her, a little less sharply than before. The weeks blurred. Josiah had night terrors. Silas refused to eat anything green. Tyrell flinched when doors closed too loudly. Devin hoarded cereal boxes under his bed, just in case. Marla stopped trying to fix them. Instead, she made herself available. She folded laundry and left extra blankets by their doors. She learned not to knock, just to wait. She stopped asking, "How was your day?" and started saying, "I'm glad you're home." It was not about being their mother. She never called herself that. They never called her that either. But one snowy afternoon, Silas ran inside yelling her name, just her first name, Marla. But the way he said it, with urgency and comfort, something clicked in her chest. It sounded like belonging. Her house, once museum clean and lifeless, now carried the scent of muddy boots, burnt toast, and something deeper, presence. Still, there were days when she questioned everything. One evening, she found the bathroom. Mirror shattered. No one confessed. No one apologized. She spent an hour cleaning glass in silence. But the next morning, she found a sticky note on the fridge. A child's scrawl. "Sorry for the mirror. I messed up. No name. Just that." She stuck the note in her wallet and carried it with her for years. The county checked in regularly. Caseworkers asked if she was managing. She always said yes. What she never said out loud was this. She had never felt more purpose, more ache, or more fear in her entire life. Then came the real test. The system called again, this time to say the boys could be separated, relocated to long-term group homes. Marla had 72 hours to decide. She hung up the phone, walked into the living room where they were all watching a rerun on mute, and simply asked, "Do you want to stay?" No one said anything, but Malcolm got up, unplugged the TV, and carried it to the back room, the one she never used. Tyrell went to the kitchen and started washing dishes. Devin picked up a broom. Josiah sat beside her and rested his head on her shoulder. Silas whispered, "I don't want to go." That was their answer. And from that moment on, something shifted. Not in the law, not on paper, but in the air between them. They were not just visitors anymore. There was never a moment where everything changed all at once. No grand declaration, no golden sunlight breaking through clouds. What built between them was quieter, slower, like ivy creeping up the side of a wall, unnoticed until it had wrapped itself around everything. The house evolved first. Marla started cooking more than she could eat. Not out of habit, but hope. And somehow, they stopped ignoring the plates left out for seconds. Devin always took the last biscuit but left the first for someone else. Malcolm stopped locking his bedroom door. Bedtime became a rhythm. Not always on time, but consistent. She left the hallway light on. That was Silas's silent request. He never asked, but she noticed the way he lingered near shadows. He began sleeping through the night. Tyrell was the hardest to read. He kept his shoes lined up perfectly, never touched anyone else's things, and flinched at hugs. But one Thursday, he caught a cold and refused to admit it. When Marla brought him tea, he scowled but drank it. The next day, she found a note under her coffee mug. "Thanks for not making me say it." She saved that one too. One Saturday afternoon, Marla saw Josiah sitting alone in the backyard, watching the sky. She brought out 2 mugs of hot cocoa and sat down beside him, quiet. After a few minutes, he whispered, "You don't talk much." "When I'm sad," Marla replied. "I figured you might want someone nearby more than a lecture." He looked at her like she had guessed a secret. That same week, Devin had a meltdown over a lost pair of sneakers. It started with yelling, turned into slamming doors, and ended with him curled up in the laundry room, crying into a pile of towels. Marla said nothing. She just sat on the floor and folded clothes slowly, giving him space to unravel. When he was done, he wiped his face and asked, "You still want me here?" She just nodded. He nodded back. It was not love yet, but it was something strong enough to lean on. The first time anyone called her Mom, it was accidental. Silas was running through the kitchen, slipped on spilled water and yelled, "Mom!" as he braced for the fall. Marla caught him just in time. They both froze. He looked up, unsure if he had messed up. She smiled. "That's okay." He whispered, "I didn't mean," but she stopped him. "Maybe you did." The next day, Devin said it too, on purpose. They were in the grocery store and he shouted down the aisle, "Mom, we're out of cereal." 3 people turned to look. Marla pretended not to cry until they got to the car. Josiah said it when he was sick. Feverish, barely awake, calling for someone, anyone, and it came out like a habit he had forgotten he wanted. Tyrell never said it out loud for months, but on his school forms, where it asked for emergency contact, he wrote, "Mother, Marla Jensen." That was his way. Malcolm. Took the longest. One night, Marla found him alone on the back porch, arms crossed tight, staring into the dark. She sat down beside him, not speaking. After a while, he said, "I don't know what a real mom's supposed to be like." She responded, "Neither do I. But I'm still here." He looked at her then, really looked, and instead of turning away, he said, "Thanks, Mom." It was soft, like something fragile being offered for the first time. She never told the others, but she never forgot. The nights became warmer, not because of the weather, but because something invisible had settled between them. She read aloud from old books while Silas curled up with a blanket. Devin played cards on the floor with Tyrell, both pretending they did not care who won. Malcolm always lingered near the doorway, pretending to be uninterested, but he never missed a night. Marla started saving more than notes. She kept little things, a paper crane from Josiah, a cartoon, Devon had drawn the tag from Silas's first new backpack. She tucked them into a shoebox under her bed. She never said it, but they were no longer just boys she had taken in. They were hers, not legally, not biologically, but fully, quietly, in every way that mattered. The silence in the house had a different sound now. Not the silence of emptiness, but of waiting. The kind of hush that comes before a symphony restarts. Years had passed. Rooms once filled with midnight laughter and spilled cereal had grown still. Marla kept them clean, just in case. She never said it out loud, but she left the light on in the hallway every night, same as before. Then, without warning, they came back. All 5. One by one, they appeared at her doorstep like puzzle pieces returning to their place. Devon was first, broad shoulders, confident stride, eyes softer than she remembered. "Got a few days off?" he said, dropping his duffel bag at the door like he had never left. Josiah followed, tall now, with a beard and a guitar case. "Hope the old porch can handle a little music again," he joked. Tyrell arrived next, in uniform, clean-shaven, a quiet strength in every movement. He saluted jokingly, then hugged her tighter than he ever had as a boy. Malcolm came with blueprints under one arm and coffee in the other. "Need to talk to you about the house," he said, like it was just another chore on the list. But Marla saw the way his hands trembled when he handed her the mug. Silas walked in last, arms full of gifts from cities she had only seen on postcards. "Thought you could use a new tea kettle," he said, placing it beside the old chipped one she refused to throw out. Marla stood in the hallway, watching it all unfold like a memory coming back to life. She pressed her hand to the wall, same spot where Devon had once written his name in crayon. Still there, barely visible, like everything else they had left. Behind, dinner that night was a mess. Too many cooks, not enough chairs, but nobody cared. As they passed dishes and inside jokes around the table, Malcolm tapped a glass and stood up. "We've been talking," he said. "This house, it gave us everything. It held us together. It deserves more." Silas nodded. "We want to fix it up, properly. Not because it needs it, but because you deserve it." Marla blinked, caught between pride and disbelief. Devon added, "We're not changing the soul of it, just giving it a second life." She tried to protest. "You do not have to do any of this. I do not need a fancy kitchen or a bigger porch." But Tyrell cut in gently. "You gave us a home when you had nothing. Let us give something back." She said nothing, just looked around the table at the boys who were now men. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself be cared for. The next few months moved in a blur of sawdust and sketches. Malcolm led the renovations. He had become an architect, specializing in spaces that told stories. Every room had a purpose. A reading corner with Marla's favorite chair, a sunlit window for her plants, a music nook for Josiah's guitar. Devon handled the plumbing and wiring, tearing out rusted lines like he was pulling trauma from the bones of the house. Tyrell painted walls with colors that felt warm and quiet. Silas curated small details, curtains from Brazil, handmade tiles from Morocco. They argued, laughed, rebuilt. Josiah filmed it all, capturing every swing of the hammer, every shared meal on the half-finished porch. He called it Where We Began and planned to release it as a short film. Marla watched it unfold without asking for a thing. She watered her plants, cooked for the crew, left encouraging notes taped to door frames. When they tried to thank her, she shook her head. "I already had everything," she whispered. By spring, the house was done, nothing extravagant. Just right. The first night they spent in the new space. Josiah played a soft melody on the porch while Marla sat between Devon and Tyrell. Nobody spoke much. They did not need to. The silence had returned, but this time it was the sound of something complete. She touched the railing, newly built but smoothed down like the old one. Her fingers found the groove where Tyrell had once carved a lightning bolt. Still there, still them. The house had not changed. It had simply grown up, just like they had. There was no date circled on the calendar, no invitation in the mail. Just a string of small, unexplained moments that Marla noticed, but did not question. Devon left early that morning, more dressed up than usual. Tyrell paced the front yard in a black suit, phone glued to his ear. Malcolm and Silas had been holed up in the attic for days, whispering, measuring things that did not need fixing. Josiah had cleaned the porch until the floorboards gleamed like new wood. No one said where they were going or why they looked at her with soft, secret smiles. She assumed they were planning something for her birthday. It was coming up after all. But this was different. Just past noon, Silas walked in holding a powder blue dress she had not worn in years. "Put this on," he said, his voice more tender than usual. "You are the guest of honor today." Before she could ask what was happening, Malcolm added, "Just trust us, okay?" They guided her into the car with a playlist of her favorite old songs, humming through the speakers. No explanations, just the quiet assurance of 5 sons who were up to something far bigger than a party. They pulled up to the city plaza. Marla saw the stage before she saw the crowd. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the square. A podium waited in the center, draped in soft fabric. There were microphones, speakers, banners, and people. Dozens at first, then hundreds, neighbors, students, old colleagues, strangers. Faces she had not seen in years, all gathered in one place. She turned to Devon, confused. "What is this?" he smiled. "Just watch." The speakers buzzed. A local host stepped onto the stage, mic in hand. "Today," she said, "we honor a woman who never asked to be seen, but changed more lives than most people who stand in spotlights every day." Marla's breath caught. "Today, we recognize a mother without blood ties," the host continued, "whose love built men, whose sacrifice rewrote 5 futures." The crowd erupted in applause. Tyrell took the stage first. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he held the mic. "I was angry when I arrived at her door. I did not trust anyone. I barely spoke. She never pushed. She just stayed. That was all I needed." Malcolm stepped forward next. "She used to cut coupons just to buy us socks. She skipped meals, but we never went hungry. Every blueprint I draw now, every building I imagine, is because she taught me that even broken things can become beautiful again." Silas followed. "People ask me where I learned to notice the little things. I tell them about the woman who left folded notes in my lunch bag for 5 years straight. The woman who remembered every song I ever loved. I owe my eye to her heart." Devon walked up slowly. "The first time I called her mom, I was 17. Thought I was too old to need one. But that night she stayed by my bedside when I was sick, holding a wet cloth to my forehead. I knew I had always had one. I just did not know it yet." Josiah took the mic last. He did not speak at first. He just looked at her. Then he said, "I was going to sing something else. But this morning I finished a song I did not even know I was writing. It is for you." He turned to the piano placed at the side of the stage and began to play. The melody was slow, aching, almost weightless. The first line floated through the air like a whisper. "You found me before I knew I was lost." The lyrics traced their journey. Each boy's fall and rise. The dinners filled with silence and comfort. The quiet prayers Marla never thought anyone heard. By the second chorus, the crowd was still. Strangers wiped their eyes. Friends held hands. Even the mayor stood with his head bowed. Marla could not stop shaking. Her hands, once so steady, now trembled in her lap. She had spent her life quietly, loving. She never asked for applause. She never needed validation. And yet, standing there as her sons bared their souls for the world to see, she felt something deeper than recognition. She felt understood. When Josiah finished, the plaza erupted. Cheers, claps, tears, all washing over her in waves. Then the host returned to the stage, this time with a city official at her side. He held a framed document, his voice booming over the microphone. By proclamation of this city, October 14th will henceforth be known as Marla Rose Day, a day to honor the power of compassion, the meaning of chosen family, and the life of a woman who redefined motherhood. The crowd stood as one. The applause was deafening. Marla stood frozen, her eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Devin stepped beside her and offered his hand. "Come on, Ma. It is your day." She walked slowly to the center of the stage. No speech prepared, no idea what to say. So she did not speak. She just turned to each of her boys, now men, and pulled them in one by one. Tight hugs, the kind that say more than words ever could. The plaque was unveiled at the front of the stage. It read, "To the woman who chose to stay, to the mother whose name was written not in birth records, but in the hearts of her sons." That night, the city lights blinked a little brighter. Marla sat on the porch in the quiet dark, her dress still soft against her skin. The breeze gentle, carrying the last notes of Josiah's song through the air. She looked up at the stars, then down at her hands. Still shaking. Still full. She had never asked for a day, but now she had one, and she would never forget it. The next morning, Marla folded the powder blue dress and tucked it into a box in her closet. She did not hang it up. She did not display the city proclamation on her wall. The award, the video, the plaque, they all found quiet places inside drawers and behind cabinet doors. To her, that day was not a monument. It was a memory, and memories, she believed, belonged in the heart, reporters had called. A few small magazines asked for interviews. Even a talk show producer had reached out through Malcolm's assistant. Marla said the same thing to every offer. "No, thank you. I have already said everything I needed to say, by raising them." She returned to her porch, to her garden, to the life she had built stitch by stitch. But something subtle had changed. People had always called her Miss Marla, or Mrs. Rose. After that day, the neighborhood children gave her a new name, Mama Rose. It started with Devin's twins, Amari and Jace, who could not pronounce grandma. Then Tyrell's youngest picked it up, and soon, even kids who were not hers began using it. The name followed her through supermarkets, school plays, and church picnics. She never corrected anyone. If Mom was the name her boys gave her out of love, then Mama Rose was the name the world gave her in return, the Faux. House stayed full, not always with noise, but with life. Josiah built her a reading room off the kitchen. Silas visited every Sunday with a new pastry he tried to bake. Malcolm repainted her bedroom in the soft lavender she once mentioned loving back in 2004. Tyrell installed a smart speaker, even though she still preferred the old radio, and Devin's wife insisted on leaving the kids with her for a weekend every month. They all had their own lives now, careers that mattered, families that bloomed, but they never drifted too far. Because everything they had built, they still believed, began on that weathered porch with her. And Marla, she kept living, quietly, softly. She sat by the window each morning with coffee and a notebook. Not to write anything important, just fragments of thought, memories she wanted to remember if her mind ever began to forget. She watched her grandchildren chase fireflies at dusk. She braided little braids and kissed scraped knees. She reminded the older ones to slow down and told the younger ones they were already enough. There were no more stages, no more surprises, no need, because her legacy did not live in headlines. It lived in laughter at her dinner table. In bedtime stories passed down from one voice to the next, in the way each of her sons held their children, with patience, with reverence, with open arms. On a warm spring morning, Marla sat on the porch wrapped in her favorite shawl, the one with tiny stitched roses along the hem. The sun was gentle, the breeze familiar. Her old radio hummed something slow and soft. She had a cup of chamomile tea in one hand and a photo album in the other. Nothing hurt. Nothing felt heavy. She just felt full. The house was quiet, but not lonely. From inside came the clatter of dishes and muffled footsteps. Her grandchildren were already awake. Devon's youngest had painted a sign that hung above the door. It read, "Mama Rose's house, home to everyone." She smiled at it every morning. Marla had lived many lives. A young wife once filled with fear, a woman who had been left behind, a foster mother with nothing but a folding cot and borrowed blankets, a parent who had burned her own dreams to keep 5 small ones warm. But now, she was just Marla. No roles, no more proving, no need to be more than what she already was. That week, each of her sons came home, quietly, without ceremony. Josiah made her laugh so hard she cried. Malcolm held her hand for hours without saying a word. Silas cooked her childhood soup from memory. Devon brought the babies, and Tyrell knelt at her feet and whispered, "I did not get here without you." They knew, even before she said it out. Loud, they knew she was nearing the end. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Marla sat alone on the porch. The stars blinked gently overhead. She pulled out a letter, the same letter she had once received from her ex-husband decades ago. She read it one final time. Then, without a trace of bitterness, she folded it neatly and placed it in a wooden box labeled, "Let Go." She did not want to take anything unfinished with her. Her last morning was like any other. She watered the plants. She hummed a hymn. She whispered a small prayer of gratitude. And then, sometime just after breakfast, Marla Rose slipped into a peaceful sleep in her favorite chair, sunlight resting on her face, wind threading softly through her silver hair. When the family found her, there were no cries of panic, no rushing, only silence and long, trembling breaths. Because in their hearts, they understood. She had lived exactly the way she had wanted to, fully, completely, and without apology. Her memorial was held on the same porch where everything had started. No cathedral, no velvet ropes, just the house. She helped rebuild with love and paint and sleepless nights. People came from every corner, neighbors, teachers, social workers. Some brought letters, some brought cookies, many brought stories. She helped me believe in people again. One woman said, "She raised those boys like the world depended on it," said another, and maybe in a way it did. Each son took the stage. Malcolm's voice broke as he read a page from the manuscript. "She never asked us to be great, just good, just kind." And somehow that was enough. Josiah added, "She never needed the world to understand her. But she made sure we understood ourselves." Devon, through tears, placed a rose beside her chair and whispered, "You built a family from ash and gave it breath." Silas brought out the box of letters she had kept over the years and read one aloud, a note from a foster parent Marla had mentored, thanking her for showing what love without conditions looked like. And then Elias, now a grown man, now an author, of 2 books and a father himself, took his place by the old piano. He played the same song he once wrote, "Where I Got to Begin Again." But this time, he ended it differently. This time, he added a new verse, one about a grandmother who gave the world a better rhythm to live by, one about how ordinary choices can create extraordinary echoes, one about how even when love is quiet, it leaves a thunder in the heart. As the last note lingered in the air, the entire crowd stood, not out of duty, but from the weight of gratitude. On the porch railing, a small plaque had been placed. It read, "This was once the home of a woman who stayed, and because she stayed, everything changed." Marla Rose did not need statues or streets named after her. Her legacy was already alive, in the hands that now held others, in the hearts that now beat stronger, in the homes rebuilt because one woman once chose not to walk away. She never asked to change the world. She just chose to love someone no one else would, and in doing so, she changed everything.